Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'll start by reading the remote attendance policy, which is pursuant to state executive orders, which temporarily suspend the in-person presence requirements and eliminate the limitation on remote access of the Illinois Open Meetings Act. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the board is suspending the usual electronic attendance and voting section of the board bylaws and will allow all board members to attend this meeting remotely and fully participate remotely. Becky, please call the roll.
Okay. Barbara Bennett.
Here.
Michael Weissman.
Here.
Jane Williams.
Here.
John Thies.
Here.
Beth Scheid.
Here.
Sharice Hersey.
Here.
Lupe Mejia.
Here.
Mark Pelmore.
Here.
And Gloria Yen.
Here.
Outstanding, thank you. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Roll call.
Aye.
Sorry about that. First mistake of the night. Go ahead,
Okay.
Becky, please call the roll.
I'm trying to figure out who's second. I got Beth and Lupe both. So
Okay, we'll go with Becky, or Beth moved and Lupe seconded.
no, Sharice moved, but okay.
Oh,
I moved.
all right. Well, I think the world will be okay no matter
Okay,
what.
well, we got it. Okay, here we go. Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Michael Weissman,
Yes.
Jane Williams.
Yes.
John Thies,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Yes.
Sharice Hersey,
Yes.
Lupe Mejia,
Yes.
Mark Pelmore,
Yes.
Gloria Yen.
Yes.
Okay, is there any public comment?
Let me check. There was not earlier, but let me do a quick check again.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 7, presentation 7.1, the library building program planning process Q&A for our former director, Fred Schlipp. Fred, publicly, let me say thank you for your offer to do this. We are very fortunate to not only have you in the community still, but have your willingness to work on such an important project as this. So I want to let you know publicly how much we appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Well, look, I can explain building programs, but you may already mostly know about building programs. You want me to talk 3 or 4 minutes about it, what it is?
I think that would be great.
Okay, building program is a written statement of all the spaces needed in a library building based on the contents of the spaces. And it also usually includes juxtapositions, so you know what's next to what, and a general overview of good and bad ideas. I tried to grab one off the stack. This is actually a draft of one for Muhammad, which is thinking of expanding, but it's something over 100 pages. And this is for a library many times smaller than Urbana. But for each section of the library, it includes, here, for example, is a written statement of all the contents, what it's next to, and where it is. You can't see it, can you? And then finally, at the end, a list of the spaces required so that you can go through it and decide whether it's the right size and whether it isn't. Typically, this is something you give to an architect and say, look, this is what we want in the library. These are the spaces we wanted. This is what's next to what and how it's supposed to work. But it is not a design. So it's very different in a way from what staff and boards do on a daily basis, which is saying there's not enough space. How can we rearrange things? What do we do differently? How can we move things around? Instead, a program is a statement of all the spaces needed in the completed project and how they work together. And the design comes later. So from that viewpoint, it's very, very different from daily work. Typically, a program is based on very extensive conversations with all the parties involved. So in this case, it would be management, which includes library management, library board, foundation, friends, any other group that's involved with the management of the library. And then the individual departments of the library, talking to each group and saying what kind of spaces, what kind of equipment you need to make your job work correctly. And then it's all stuck together, and out of that comes a written building program. Some of them can be very long because we sometimes decide that you can't afford to put in everything you really need right now, so you'll do it later. And so we end up with a two-phase program where it says, here's what we're going to build now, and here's what we're going to build later. And the reason to do it in two phases is so that the architect knows what he's up against, because architects are faced with a description of needs. And if you're not careful, the architects will design a building that meets your needs now, but can't easily be modified to meet needs in the future. And so one of the ways to protect yourself is to say what you want to do now and what you want to do later, so that the project, the long term of the project isn't interfered with by the short term. Boy, that was badly put. At any rate, the whole idea is so that you can use it to protect the library's long-term investment. And that can happen a great deal. We get a lot of library buildings that are built where they meet the current needs and there's no way they can be adapted to meet future needs. And one of the reasons Urbana has a steel wall at the west end was to remind the whole community that we weren't done. So, and I got interested in this partly because when I came to Urbana, the 1975 edition was underway and kind of screwed up. And that's a technical term, I guess. But at any rate, as a result, I ended up spending a lot of time trying to make things work, and then a lot of time clearing up a fiscal mess. So my first 2 years on the job were basically building years. But that got me interested in library architecture as working in the area, trying to prevent things from going wrong. And so over the years since then, I've worked on something like, I don't know, maybe 175 to 200 library building projects. So there are a lot of them. In fact, I'm getting overwhelmed by paper and architectural drawings, and my house is kind of a mess as a result. But that's the general purpose. In general, I depend on long lists of questions for various groups. Here's a sample list, and you probably can't see it either, but it's endless questions of you want this, you want that. And one of the reasons to ask it this way is to find out what you don't want as well as what you do want, because both are very useful information. Because inevitably, if you say we don't want this, sooner or later, someone is going to say, what about this? And if you can say, no, we've reviewed that and we don't want to do that, that helps a great deal. One thing you can work with to begin with is some of your long-range plans. For instance, what Amanda's worked on forms a basis for library building planning. You know, building planning is unbelievably detailed in tiny elements, which is not what other kinds of plans do, but it's a way of getting everything in print that you need. So what questions can I answer for you? Figure about 6 months.
Okay, we'll start with Celeste.
I was going to say the timeline is one thing we talked about, Fred. So 6 to 8 months. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think 6 is optimistic, frankly. There's a lot of people to talk to, and there's also things you want to do, like do you want to seek public input? And if so, the best way I know is through focus groups, where you gather together, for example, a group of 10 mothers of young children, or old guys like me, or people who are interested in genealogy and local history, or school teachers, or any other group, and ask them what it is that you want from your library. And it helps everybody to make sure we haven't forgotten anything. And focus groups are pretty straightforward. It's a matter of finding enough people, making sure they actually attend, which can sometimes be a bit of a strain. And I find that although when I'm talking with a group like yours, I can keep my own notes, as I told Celeste, with focus groups, I have to have somebody on the library staff act as a secretary, because I can't constantly interrupt the group and look down and start writing. And I can ask you to put up with that, but you can't ask a focus group to do that. But it's a pretty good system. And it's a way of finding out, is there anything that motivates people that we don't have put down here? I include typically in programs a great deal of information about good and bad library functions. And a lot of it I can trace right back to my starting at Urbana Free Library in 1974, when I found strange things, planned for the new building. And it really matters because some of it isn't changeable. For instance, if you look at the building, the ceilings in the first expansion on the ground, on the basement and on the second floor are too low. And this is uncorrectable. So you notice that on the second floor, when you go from phase 2 to phase 3, the ceiling goes up. If you, in the ground floor, in the basement, you go from phase 2 to phase 3, the floor drops. And in both cases, they were to get adequate vertical clearance. And so vertical clearance, you really need about 10 feet. And with less than that, you have trouble. Well, you have some very interesting problems. For instance, how do you deal with the unbelievably impressive collection of the archives? And I hold the archives very dear because it was the thing I worked hardest on when I came to the library was developing the archives, which was a strange collection of mismatched items. You remember it, Becky? Well, you weren't with it, when we first opened the door of the archives. It had all kinds of strange things. It was based on a personal book collection. So some of the things were very much within the focus of the archives, for instance, Champaign County history, surrounding counties, and others were strange books that had no relevance whatsoever. But the trouble is, once you straighten that out and you limit the collection to what is relevant, nothing ever gets thrown out. So, and the thing we did throw out, we regretted later. So part of it is, how do you plan for enough space and be able to retrieve things now scattered around downtown Urbana? But it's an impressive collection, and having it close and nearby makes a big difference. But that's one of the interesting problems, because the question is, how do you plan for the long term? Because it's never going to shrink and it's always going to grow.
Well,
How do you handle that?
with archives, does the possibility of digitizing at least reduce the catastrophe if you later say, oh God, I wish we hadn't thrown that out?
You can do that. I could ask Donica to talk about that, but it's one of the problems is that digitization is not always permanent. And technology changes, and there are some horror stories about microfilming where it went bad.
Sure.
They'd film the originals and then throw the originals away, and then the film would go bad. In the 60s, when I got involved in librarianship professionally, I think it was called J defect, and it was problem due to bad hypoclearance in microfilm. So I'm always scared about getting rid of originals because of that, even though they can go in dead storage somewhere. And in many cases, we depend upon the electronic versions, especially because they're held elsewhere. I worry about totally getting rid of things. And that's a personal feeling. It's also none of my business in a way, because when I try to find out what it is that the library wants and get it in print, I'm not in charge. And so what I really need to do is find out what it is that the board and staff want and how they see the future.
Fred, when you talk, I love the point you made before about you don't want to just design for what you need right now, but you want to design for the present and the future. In your experience, what is a good timeline for the present versus your longer term planning?
Assuming that planning and design and fundraising and construction is a minimum of 5 years, you probably want to design for at least 25 years.
Perfect. Thank you.
In other words, part of that's driven by typical loan. If you borrow money for part of the project, it typically will have a 20-year loan period. And because of that, that's kind of led libraries to think in those terms. But I think less than 25 years is short-sighted. And more than that is kind of assuming that we know more about the long-term future than we do, because the world changes. Not as fast as some people say it does, but I think things are different now. I remember when I came to the library in 1974, the world of libraries was a very different place, including the lack of digitization. Everything was manual. In fact, I started working in libraries in 1963, and no place in the country used computers. University of Texas, a little while later, started using key punching of IBM cards for date due. And they hand wrote all the other information on the card, but they could sort it by running it through a counter sorter. And the world has changed. And who knows what's going to happen in the next 50 years. So I hate to, I really like to encourage kind of flexibility of design. Because if you make a rigid assumption about the nature of future reality, we can be wrong. And I think one of the things you can see we tried to do in the expansion of the library, the last expansion, was the new wing has almost nothing built in. Outside of the archive walls and staircases and restrooms, there's nothing built in the last expansion that's nailed down. And it has electrical outlets everywhere, on the presumption that if we're lucky, we can cope with changes in the future. But I think that what you brought up earlier about what you can get rid of and replace with more compact forms is a very, very interesting question. Because how do we do it? And how do we protect ourselves? And how do we not get so buried in paper we can hardly move? So those are interesting problems, but the archives has made some fascinating acquisitions. The News Gazette material, the Chanute material, these are fantastic collections. And it's fun to think of the archives as being one of the best operations of its kind in the country. I can't think of any library in a town the size of Urbana that has an equivalent operation. Can you, Donica? Is there anybody else competing? I
Well,
can't.
I like to tell people that we're unique, but they end up telling us that more often than I have to say it. So there are a few regional libraries, but they're in much bigger areas than ours.
You're very fortunate. Well, now you can see why it's so important for us to do this planning. Fred, anything else that you want to add for tonight's discussion? Otherwise,
I think I've told you everything. This is probably one of the last big programs I do. You know, I'm nudging 80, and at a certain point, I've got to slow down. But the thought of being involved marginally on a third expansion of the Urbana Free Library is pretty exciting.
it is. Yeah, it is. Charisse.
The question that I have is because you were saying focus groups, and I guess in my ward where I am, I'm not saying that I'm sure there are a lot of people that use the library, but at the same time, I'm sure there are a lot of people that don't. What I guess one of the focus groups I would ask you, how about a focus group of people who don't use the library as much?
I think a remarkably good idea, because if people aren't using the library and there's something that can be done to change that, what a wonderful thing to do for a town. And so people who feel for some reason they've been either unattracted or left out, it's really great to be able to involve them and try to see what can be done to make it a better operation.
So do you have questions or would those same questions that for people who use the library be used for people who maybe don't use the library as much?
They can be similar. With focus groups, we start out with a few questions and then see where it goes. Because you can kind of read people as you go. What are they really interested in? What would they like to see in the library? How can it be adapted to meet their needs? But one of the very first times I did this many years ago, the president of the library board didn't like children's books or fiction.
Oh my God.
And
Whoa.
in the audience, there was a young mother saying, but I want whatever it was, books to appeal to her preschoolers. And the president of the board said, but we just bought the McGraw-Hill Encyclopedia of Science and Technology. And this didn't speak to these people. And I think one of the reasons you have to do these things is to be sure that, that you have a wonderful staff, but maybe there's something they've missed. And even if they haven't missed it, what a wonderful chance to come to the library and tell people what you think. So even if it doesn't change the procedure, it helps people feel that they were really involved. I think that's a very important thing. Because if people don't feel involved in the library, you kind of miss that essential connection to the community. And usually in building programs, I list all the people who were on the various focus groups. And that, I think, gives it a greater sense of validity because people can see there's my name, I was involved in it, and they're recognizing me for what I did. And it takes just a few pages extra.
In
So
my,
how-
in my
how do-
experience, sorry,
Oh.
sure. In my experience, focus groups are not just about getting information from those that participate. It's a tool to be used to have more success in the future. In other
Mhm.
words, you get more ownership from the community when you tell people that you care, and they'll be more likely to follow up with you.
Well,
Charisse,
A lot of it also is not really structure, it's attitude in people. So you come in the library and you feel welcome right away. What a
Right.
difference that makes. And that's not really buildings unless you have a weird building that feels off-putting. But I remember when I came, pardon?
I think that's not right.
Okay.
All right, Charisse, go ahead.
I was just wondering how do we go about getting these focus groups or forming these groups, or especially now with COVID and everything? Is this something that has to be done within the next few weeks, or is it something that we, how would that be done?
I would delay until maybe late next year from now, maybe, because it's a big project. You can get it in print with a group like this and with your staff. We can all meet electronically. And for focus groups, I think it's great to delay as long as possible in case we can go back to face-to-face meeting, because I think it's a much more powerful thing if we can make it work. Otherwise, we just have to do the best we can. But I've been there on a lot of these, and I think that being able to talk to people directly and associate with them in one room full of people works very well. So I think that's what you're suggesting. Is that, am I
Mhm.
right? That
Yeah.
person to person really matters. So I would get the program in print and then regard the focus groups as correcting it, tuning it,
Tweaking.
changing it,
Right.
updating it, but not being the initial leadership, but the community feedback.
Yeah, it's a great way to see if you're on the right track.
And-
Okay,
and
unless there are any other burning questions, we got a lot more stuff to do, and we'll have more opportunities to talk about this in the future. Any other questions for Fred?
No, thank you, Fred.
Okay, again, Fred, thank you so much.
don't hesitate to contact me or call me. The only thing is, if you call me and ask me a question about the program, I will respond by email to Celeste, who can send it to the whole board, so we don't have side conversations.
Good.
But I can't imagine, I've worked with this library board, I worked with it for 30 some years, and I never can remember a time when a side conversation would have been welcome. I think everybody wants to hear what's going on.
Right,
So
absolutely.
call me if you have any questions.
Thank you, Fred. Okay, let's move on to 7.2, technology plan. Drew.
Hey everyone, it's Drew, IT manager. I just wanted to introduce to you guys the 2021-2022 technology plan. So we had a little bit of a new tech committee this year, and we worked entirely on Teams for this, Microsoft Teams, to collaborate from a distance. So that was new, but it really worked out well. I gave each individual kind of an assignment to go back to their department and speak with everyone and gauge input on how things are going with technology, and where they would like to see things go in the future. So we got a lot of good feedback, and had great participation. So they really helped to make this a robust plan that we can be proud of. So I'd just like to request that you guys read it over in the next month or so, or not month or so, in the next month, because you will be reviewing this in January at the next board meeting. So without reading the entire thing, one portion of the tech plan that really stands out is a section that we felt we should add about adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic and all the challenges we've had to think on our feet with and adapt to. So I'm just going to go ahead and read that for you and then take questions.
All right, go ahead.
So in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, many of the library's technology needs rapidly evolved to meet the needs of our staff and our community. And the Urbana Free Library staff across all departments engaged with technology in new ways, and we're very proud of them. So we went from no staff working from home at all to all staff working from home in the matter of days. So a bulk laptop purchase was made to increase the productivity of our staff working from home, and many new software platforms were deployed to help us meet the changing needs of this new environment. So IT staff purchased, received, loaded software, and deployed these devices all during the stay-at-home order. And then staff across all departments began using Microsoft Teams and Zoom for the first time or in new ways and began submitting timesheets electronically. So staff learned to navigate multiple platforms in order to participate in many online professional development opportunities. With new technology, TUFL pivoted during the stay-at-home order from offering no programs at all to providing a variety of virtual programs to our patrons. Virtual programming continued after we opened. And also, the Champaign County Historical Archives worked with library staff across departments to transcribe and digitize over 50 oral histories by utilizing Microsoft Teams, the library's digital repository, and VPN capabilities. Staff also use oral history transcription software and cassette to MP3 technology to convert the oral histories to new accessible media formats. And patrons benefited by having access to archival materials in new ways. IT helped implement temperature sensing devices to help circulation staff monitor the temperature of the ZapBug heating room for heat treating our returns. IT and circulation also collaborated on setup and implementation of new software and procedures for our curbside pickup service. And when the hold shelf was moved to a self-service model, the patron hold slip printing process was reconfigured to provide patron privacy. Many other changes were made throughout the library to promote the safety and wellness of our patrons and staff, including moving PCs for social distancing, adding touchscreens on print release stations and self-checkout machines, and installing new software for socially distant tech support in the computer lab. So that's just a section that we thought we should include about our response to the pandemic. That also, the pandemic kind of threw a wrench into some of our plans from last year, such as the collaboration spaces that we talked about. Those got put on hold for now. But it's also given us a chance to kind of think of new exciting things we can do to try to adapt and meet our strategic goals in alignment with the strategic plan. So
Right.
really proud of this one. There's a lot of good participation, a lot of good feedback, and I'm excited for you guys to look at it.
Thank you, Drew. We're all looking forward to seeing it as well. And I think in a number of years, we're all going to look back and ask ourselves whether we were in the category of people that made the most of the circumstances or whether we missed opportunities. And so far, we appear to be making the most of the circumstances. And this is going to carry on. And this is true in lots of the things that we do, but certainly in the library, this is going to carry on into the future. We're going to be able to do things that we never thought we could. Are there questions for Drew? Okay, Drew, thanks so much. We'll look forward to seeing more of this and talking about it amongst ourselves.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 7.3. And we've got standards for Illinois Public Library chapters on governance and administration and building, infrastructure, and maintenance.
And I'm going to share my screen. Let me just get to that. Share screen. There we go. Can you see this okay? It should say Public Library Per Capita Grant.
Yes.
Okay, great. So my job is to cover 2 chapters with you this month. The first is governance and administration, and the second has to do with our facilities. So I'm happy to report that we either meet or are making progress toward all the standards in both of these chapters. I want to point out a couple things in chapter 2 under governance and administration. A couple of important parts have to do with board advocacy. So there's a section that talks, a couple of points that talk about board members will participate in local, state, regional, and national decision-making that will benefit the libraries. And there are a couple of ways that board members have done this in the past and will continue to do so. You can participate in the Illinois Library Association late winter meet and greets that we have with legislators. Normally this has been in person, where we go to a place and get a presentation on priorities at the national and state levels for libraries and talk through those pieces, have breakfast or lunch with your legislators, and share stories with each other and talk about the benefits of libraries and why legislators should vote a certain way or positions themselves in a certain way to help promote good library use and laws that benefit libraries and for library patrons. There will be virtual coffee hours or happy hours this year, but we will not be having these in-person meetings. Also through Illinois Library Association and the American Library Association, board members who want to learn more about ways that they can be advocates have different training opportunities. So there's a trustee day once a year, and there's the ILA conference where there's a trustee day within that conference, and there are different training opportunities. So if you're interested in learning more about advocacy, what are the ways that you can reach out? What are techniques that you can use? Please let me know or take a look at the Illinois Library Association's advocacy webpage. Another important element of governance is board professional development. So we do encourage you to attend different professional development opportunities. Lupe just went to the IHLS member day as well as the ILA. We have a budget for administration and board attendance. So if something strikes your fancy, please let us know. Also, there are all kinds of Zoom meetings out there now that might be of interest. So I try to send those to you so you can see what's available and see what you think you'd benefit from. And again, if you are interested, please let me know in learning different kinds of things. At the local level, you can attend city council meetings when we talk about the budget if you're so inclined, or when we present to city council about different library initiatives. If you ever want to come with me to say hello to city council, you are welcome to do that. And of course, we have Sharice, who is both a city council person and also on the library board. So she is our immediate liaison in that way. One thing that we don't currently have is a written succession plan that is listed as one of the things that libraries should look at. So we talk about if so-and-so were to move on, how would the library handle that? If this position came open, how would we move ahead? And every time a person does leave, whether the person is an associate director, executive director, department head, shelver, we look at each departure as an opportunity to evaluate workflow and see what the library leads at that time. And the management team and administrative team have different conversations about organizational development on an ongoing basis. So although we don't have a written succession plan, looking at how the organization functions and what we need to do to thrive is a common conversation. And so I will go next to building infrastructure and maintenance. So this is a picture of 2 young men using one of our study rooms back when you could allow people to be in the study rooms. And as Drew said, we were going to look at some type of sharing opportunities to have different types of technology. People love the whiteboards, which is great. And we are glad to see that, but we're looking for some ways to people to share laptops and screens and such. So that will be sometime in our future when that is a thing that we can do again. We are, again, meeting or working towards all the standards. I hope to give to Dawn this week the job description for the facilities manager so we can hire a person to specialize in building infrastructure and maintenance. We have a capital plan knowing the big items that we need to replace every so many years. So carpeting's on a 30-year rotation, or the roof needs to be done every so many years. So we have been setting aside funds for some of those larger items, but we haven't looked at some of the smaller items. And attending ILA, Dawn and I attended a session talking about a capital asset plan. And so in the mid future, not tomorrow future, but soon, we'll be working on something. I'll be working with the facilities manager on developing a capital asset plan. So things are written down from those really big items to some of the smaller items as well. As Fred just discussed with you, we're going to begin the building program process. And it's recommended in the standards for Illinois public libraries that we're working out of that the budgets include ongoing as well as periodic and future projects, and our budgets do include that. We do need to put aside, and you're going to see in this year's budget, more money going aside for future projects like the roof and other expensive things that we know are going to come our way. A couple years back, we did set up a special reserve fund for capital expenses. So the library has that. And then we are looking to move it this month, some of the reserved funds for future expenses with the building program to the foundation to be our custodian of those funds. So again, currently Tuffle has a small amount of money in the tens of thousands of dollars in our capital special reserve fund. And then the foundation, we expect to have a larger portion of funds for that too. Michael, I'm sure you noticed that the last thing mentioned in this chapter had to do with libraries being environmentally friendly. And I thought that you would that would resonate with this board as a whole. We have taken different steps from changing out the lights to be LED and be more energy efficient to looking at whether or not we could put solar on the roof. And the answer is you can't put solar on the roof until a new roof is put on, so that when the solar is implemented, we're not having to move it and then replace the roof in 5 years. So we have looked at some options to be more environmentally friendly. We're going to be exploring the geothermal opportunities coming up, and we will continue to work in this direction. Also, there is sometimes a balance that you have to take between being environmentally friendly and being disease or pest resistant. So for example, if you are putting HEPA filters on the HVAC system, or the most intense filtering system like you'd have in a hospital here, our HVAC system is actually not built to sustain that. It can't push the air through. So there's a balance between being as disease resistant or bed bug or whatever type of resistant that you want to be, and creating a safe environment in some ways and being environmentally friendly. So just so you know, we are aware that there are trade-offs and balances, and we look to those and make the best decisions given the different factors at hand. So those are those two chapters. Do you have any questions? I will stop sharing right now so we can all see each other better. Oops. There we go.
Questions for Celeste? Okay, seeing none, I have a comment, and it's on the succession planning point that you made. It would be good to have that on the list of things maybe to be looking at. Not every organization has a succession plan in writing, and maybe given your description of it, you're managing it fine, but it's something for us to maybe talk about at another point with your advice. Okay, all right, Celeste, thank you. That's 7.3. Let's move on to 8.0, and it's the consent agenda. Are there any items that anybody would like to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, in a second, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve these items, but I'm going to read them first so you know what the motion should sound like, and then you can just perhaps say, okay, that sounds good. On the current consent agenda, we have the board meeting minutes of November 10th, 2020. We have payroll for November 20th, 2020, totaling $97,452.09. Payroll for December 4th, 2020. The second version of that, a total of $97,536.07. Payroll for December 4th, 2020. That's the next version, and that's a total of $172.25. Bills for November 12th, 2020, totaling $7,996.79. Bills for November 24th, 2020, totaling $24,697.09. And bills for December 3, 2020, a total of $34,902.09. Is there a motion to approve that consent agenda? item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please. I'm sorry, the clerk call the roll. Sorry, Becky, I'm getting used to this.
You're muted.
Gotta unmute me. Okay, Barb Bennett,
Yes.
Michael Weissman. Michael,
Yes. Oh,
sorry. Okay, I'll be a little louder. Okay. Jane Williams,
Yes.
John Thies,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Yes.
Sharice Hersey,
Yes.
Lupe Mejia,
Yes.
Mark Pelmore,
Yes.
Gloria Yen.
Yes.
Okay, and I heard no negatives. The ayes have it and the motion carries. Let's move on to item number 9. And we have 9.1, resolution to accept gifts. Does anybody want, Celeste, do you want to describe this one for us? It's all self-explanatory, I think, but any other background you want to give us?
We are delighted that the library has received a couple of large bequests in the past couple of months. It shows how much the library means to people in our community, and we are grateful for this unrestricted gift. We will look at this in context of a $30,000 gift received last month. This is a $35,000 gift. That's $65,000 in 2 months unrestricted. So the administrative and management team will be looking at how we would recommend this be spent. So we recommend that you accept the gift.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
In a second?
I
Second.
Okay, please call the roll. All those in favor, please say aye.
whoops.
In response to Becky calling the roll.
Barb Bennett,
Aye.
Michael Weissman,
Yes.
Jane Williams,
Yes.
John Thies,
Aye.
Beth Scheid,
Aye.
Sharice Hersey,
Aye.
Lupe Mejia,
Aye.
Mark Pelmore,
Aye.
Gloria Yen.
I think we only had ayes, so I will declare that one passed. Thank you. 9.2, fiscal year 21 budget amendment. Celeste?
That is a budget amendment to add the $35,000 to the donations, contributions, and gifts line, as well as a revenue line, and then to the other library materials expense line in the library's gift funds.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
In a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, please indicate as such when the clerk calls the roll.
John, can I get some clarification about that, because I kind of got confused with the
Yes,
budget.
please do. Go ahead, Sharice.
Celeste, I don't know. I'm not good with this. I always say that. So could you give me some more clarification about how you're moving the funds again?
So we did not expect to receive a gift this large. So if the library staff were to come up with an idea of how to spend the money this year, we want the board to have already added it into something we can spend. So we've got 2 lines here. One, we're going to add it in as a revenue line, that we are adding this much in as expected revenue, but then we're also adding it in as expected expense, so that we would have the ability to spend the money this year if we had a project that was worthy of it and we could move ahead. Because right now we haven't budgeted to spend this much money because we did not expect a gift so large.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was looking at the I don't know, maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing.
It's on page 4 of the director's report.
I was gonna say, it's this? Is what I was looking at?
Oh, I can't see your paper.
Ugh.
Oh, so the gift agreement, that is a different thing. That is with the foundation, and that's the next number. That's
Okay.
9.3.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand when I was looking at it. It's on page 4, you said?
On page 4, yep.
Of Celeste's report.
It's
Okay.
right under action and information.
Okay.
Any other questions before we vote?
No, I'm good.
Anybody else? Okay, Becky,
Barbara Bennett. Barb Bennett.
Aye.
Michael Weissman.
Aye.
Yes.
Jane Williams.
Aye.
John Thies.
yes.
Beth Scheid.
Yes.
Sharice Hersey.
Aye.
Lupe Mejia.
Aye.
Mark Pelmore.
Aye.
Gloria Yen.
Okay, that was unanimous and the motion carries. Thank you. On to 9.3, the foundation payment for $425,000.
So when we developed this year's budget, we anticipated moving $425,000 from our gift funds. There's a $300,000 gift that we received some years back to work on a low vision room for the library and low vision services. And then $125,000 was received recently to expand the library. We are not in a position right now to do either of those things. And the foundation's mission is to do lots of larger fundraising as well as some of these ongoing programs, but they focus on some of these larger capital expenses. So it benefits the library to have these funds shepherded for now and managed by the Urbana Free Library Foundation. It's what the board budgeted us to do, was to shift the funds over to them for their care. But because it is a large amount of the check, and because we said that we're not going to request the check be cut until the foundation put a couple of policies in place. For example, like you were showing us, Sharice, that gift agreement, which they didn't have before, they have put the different infrastructural pieces in place as a body. And so we feel very good now about transferring these funds over there to the foundation for their care. And this agreement shows that the foundation won't spend this money on anything other than what the original donors had intended, and that the foundation will cut checks to cover costs in these areas.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First, is there a motion to approve?
I'd like to move to approve the Urbana Free Library Foundation payment for $425,000.
The transfer to the foundation?
Transfer, yeah.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, any further questions? Hearing and seeing none. All those who are in favor indicate as such when Becky calls the roll.
Barbara Bennett.
Aye.
Michael Weissman.
Yes.
Jane Williams. Jane.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. John.
Yes.
Beth Scheid.
Aye.
Sharice Hersey.
Aye.
Lupe Mejia.
Aye.
Mark Pelmore.
Aye.
Gloria Yen.
Okay, and that again was unanimous, and so we'll declare that that passed. On to 9.4, and in your materials, you have an intergovernmental agreement that was amended, and there's going to be one more amendment. And I don't know, Celeste, if what went out was a red line showing the changes that I made. Okay, so you all saw the last red line, which were some things that I noticed. And then there is one more thing in the paragraph describing addresses to send notices. This was obviously an overwritten agreement, and there's a reference to the Urbana School District, and that needs to be deleted. And so I'll give people a chance to talk about this, but is there a motion to approve this resolution, which is the agreement, with the amendment to delete the references to the school district? Yeah, Celeste first, before somebody makes that motion. Celeste?
Yeah, I sent out the final version later this afternoon, I should say, and it is up on the website. If people want to pause and go to the website and take a look at it, if you haven't already taken a look. There are a couple other small changes saying that it would like start January 1st. So it's very much, it's what I sent mid-afternoon. John's changes then plus a couple more. So thank you also to Lupe for pointing out that we had still left the school district in there.
Okay, unless anybody wants to delay, let's go ahead then, and I'll entertain a motion to approve that agreement.
I move to approve the resolution for the IGA.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is
I
there any
second.
further, oh, sorry, Barb. Okay, is there any further discussion, any other questions?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I don't see any or hear any. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye when Becky asks you. Go ahead, Becky.
Barbara Bennett,
Aye.
Michael Weissman,
Aye.
Jane Williams, John Thies,
Yes.
Beth Scheid,
Aye.
Sharice Hersey,
Aye.
Lupe Mejia,
Aye.
Mark Pelmore,
Aye.
Gloria Yen.
Aye.
Did you catch Jane's vote?
Jane,
Let me just say, are there any opposed? If there are any opposed, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, I think we'll declare it unanimous and the resolution has been approved. Thank you. All right, that's paragraph 9. On to paragraph 10 and discussion items. Do you have any discussion items tonight? Beyond what we've already been discussing?
Oh, I've lost track of the agenda right now, but the nominating committee report, does that come under discussion items or separate?
We're going to get that in just a little bit. That's 13.
Yeah, I've got that on another.
Yep, don't worry, I'll get to you for sure.
On the screen, so it's underneath.
Okay. Okay, seeing and hearing none, let's move on to reports of the liaison officers or individuals. 11.1, Friends of the Library.
I have nothing to report. Celeste, have you heard anything from
They
friends?
may be starting an Etsy store. So we are looking
Oh.
possibly to branch out a little bit. So Eleanor Brown, who has helped get the Amazon store started and working with volunteers on that, had the idea of an Etsy store. The friends liked it, but right now we don't have volunteers in the building. So they are going to move ahead with that.
Exciting.
Yeah, that's a brand new one. Barbie didn't get to share it with you. Thank you.
Okay, 11.2, Foundation.
The foundation launched their annual campaign. You should have received the email. Response has been good. Give early and often. And we will have more to report next month on that.
Okay, thank you. And then Illinois Heartland Library System, Lupe.
Okay, so Illinois State Library awarded IHLS $125,000 for the purchase of e-resources for its members. So these funds are going towards the purchase of additional ebooks and e-audiobooks for share users, which is very exciting. Yeah. IHLS delivery service continues uninterrupted during our phase 3 mitigations. So they are still continuing for all libraries that want to participate. And the materials quarantine is still holding at 5 days. IHLS is continuing to devote our advocacy efforts this year as a major project in supporting school libraries. So I am on the advocacy committee as well, and we're especially interested in looking at opportunities for how local libraries are partnering with and supporting their school libraries in their areas. So any feedback that anyone from the library has to share with how we're partnering with USD, anything I can take back to share, best practices or ideas, I'd be happy to take that back to IHLS.
That's great. Any questions for Lupe? All right, on to paragraph 12, administrative report. Celeste?
Just to give you a quick update, one of the things that happened recently as a unpleasant surprise was inadvertently a subcontractor cut through our entire phone line. So we have 0 phone connectivity using the physical phone lines, but Drew has just been amazing and worked with our wonderful telecommunications company that got us up today on our 367-4057 main number is live. And then the reference desk for adult reference 367-4405 is also live. So we will be looking at other options. It could be a while. It could be a month. They're going to have to, they said it could be that they have to dig up the street to find and be able to repair the cable.
Oh my.
So we are sharing information with our public via all our different resources on our website, signs on the door, like high tech and low tech, we're doing it all, but it could be a little while. So step by step, we're working through. Staff have been great. The public's been understanding. And we were delighted to have phones available this afternoon, and lots of people were calling.
Lupe.
I just wanted to comment. We had a curbside pickup for Sunday for some things, and the staff was just absolutely amazing of coordinating via email, coordinating my pickup with my husband's pickup, and we did it all via email, and they were there, waiting for us, watching out for us. So just kudos in a really difficult situation to still really be able to deliver that high level customer service. So it was very much appreciated.
We will pass that on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so this belongs in the category of doing things that you never thought you could.
Actually, I have a quick question. So although the library wasn't hiring the subcontractors, do you know, Celeste, are they having the usual discussion about blame, about whether there was a locate or not between the subcontractors and the contractors, and then the city getting what they were supposed to be getting, because that sometimes affects the speed of repair. If they can assign responsibility for the cut and everyone can agree with it, then usually things will move a lot quicker. If they can't, it could be a real prolonged process.
Well, I will talk to you because it sounds like you've got lots of experience in this area.
Unfortunately, yes.
I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay,
Good.
great.
Okay, any questions for Celeste? Hearing none, thanks for your report. Move on to 13, board and committee reports. All right, Michael and Barb, you're up.
Barb is going to do this.
Yes, we would like to present the slate for Secretary Pro Tem, and we'd like to nominate Lupe Mejia.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll second.
So moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none, because I don't want anybody to get in the way of this.
The vote has to be next month, though.
We're not going to vote on it today. Hearing none,
Nope.
we're not going to vote on it today.
Your bylaws don't allow that.
Right, no, I'm joking.
Okay.
I'm tracking. So Lupe, you're going to have to hang in there.
You got it.
Don't go anywhere.
Change my mind.
Okay, board president's reports. I want to underscore all of the happy and pleasing comments that we've been hearing about the job that the staff has been doing. From my perspective, sounds like from the other board members as well. We have been doing really a great job at maximizing our functionality in a tough time, and so continued compliments for Celeste and the rest of the team. Thank you. And on that note, is there any unfinished business? Any new business? Okay, let the record reflect also how pleased we were to read the article about Gloria today. If you didn't get to see it in the Gazette, it was very nice. So congratulations again, Gloria.
Is it on the online version too, Gloria? Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. Mhm.
All right, I'll be reading that then.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? I think we won't call this one. I'll just say I'm ready to go. All right,
Toodles.
the motion carries. Celeste, anything else?
No, just wishing you all a great evening.
Okay, stay safe, everybody.